Start recording. Okay, looks like I'm recording. Welcome everyone, I am Brush for Hire. We're going to be painting Goldar the Barbarian from Reaper. Reaper number is 03461. We're going to be working on flesh tones. That's why we got a nice big muscly barbarian looking dude here. That way have as much flesh to play with on him. We're going to be doing darker skin tones. And alright, let's get started. Was that a good intro? I don't know. I'm not editing anything, so we'll find out if that was a good intro or not. Or probably not. So I get asked a lot about like, what colors exactly I'm going to use. A lot of time I don't know until I'm in the middle of painting it, and that's why I don't really worry too much about what colors and listing them. And because the point of what I'm teaching is I don't want people to get caught up on, having to use the same exact colors I do, having to duplicate everything exactly how I do it. This is another miniature I painted here. I've been trying to work a lot more diversity into my skin tones and try and get them to look right. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. I already did my zenithal undercoating with the primers here. I did black, gray, and white, and I just did it with a brush and just kind of dry brushed it on there just to show that you do not have to have a airbrush to do this. The airbrush does make it a bit smoother, makes it a little bit nicer. I'm not going to be glazing with flesh tones on, I'm just going to be painting them on, so I'm not going to really worry too much about the super smoothness of it because we're not going to be doing transparent glazes or anything like that. We're just going to paint on here. And basically, it's really, the basic thing of skin tones is they all have the same kind of greens, reds, and different tones in them. They're all going to work pretty similar, whether it's a light Caucasian, a dark, deep, African skin tone, Middle Eastern skin tone, whatever kind of skin tone you're painting, they all are going to have those reds and greens and different stuff in there because of the blood vessels and muscle and bone and all that stuff there. But and for anyone watching this on YouTube later, I am streaming this live on Twitch, so if I respond to things in the chat there and stuff, or suddenly start laughing, it's because people are putting insane stuff into the chat. Queez says I'll intro you, so I'm sure you will. I don't know if that's really a threat or what, but so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna look at some of the different browns I have here, kind of see what kind of browns I have. This is a nice darker, almost mahogany brown here. We got kind of a wood gray. This nice skin tone here. Going to that brown. I'm just going to grab a whole bunch of different browns. We're going to grab a little bit of this I can mix in for highlights. This is tan flesh from Pro Acryl. These are old animation studio paints that I've used for years and years and years. They're not even available anymore. That company is long closed down because no one's really doing hand animation studio or hand animation in the US, I guess, so they didn't stay open very long. But I will say the Pro Acryl paints are very, very similar, and I really, really like them. I like a lot of the Reaper paints. Also, that's probably my second favorite brand of paint. And I just don't have a lot of the dark browns from Reaper yet, but I'm getting there. We'll get some more of those. Let's see. Do this nice mahogany. It's going to give some nice reddish tones to the shadows. Light umber here from Pro Acryl. We'll add that in the mix. What else have I got? Anything else I want to grab? I think it'll be pretty good. Let's start with, I'm going to start with a dark camo green, just kind of give my flesh tone a green base. This video isn't going to be, and the point of this video and the paint-alongs are not always to have a super precise, just like step-by-step, like boom, 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 you're done, you have an amazing piece. This is going to be more so showing you how I work through them and tweak things and kind of go, okay, I want this to be like this, I want this to be like that, and thinking about why I do what I do, but I always like using a nice dark kind of olive camo green for an undercoating of skin tones. It works real nice to get all my shadows in there and kind of give it more of a lifelike skin tone shadow right off the bat. Like I said, a lot of this is going to get covered, but I'm just thinning it down just a little bit just to make it flow a little bit better so it goes on nice and smooth and thin. We'll just give the entire thing a nice coat of this. And I have no idea what secondary colors I'm going to use for anything yet, or even a primary color I'm going to use for the main color of his cloak or anything like that. Like, the nice thing about this is it's going to be a lot of neutral tones because of the armor, because of, I mean, we have the axe handle, the armor, his wrist guards, the pauldron, got the loincloth, which is his fur. We got the leg guards, whatever they're called. I don't know. I'm not good with that stuff. But we don't got any feet showing or toes or anything like that, so it's going to be pretty much all upper body flesh here. Leg guards equal greaves. Alright, thank you very much. So these are greaves, which is familiar. Thank you very, very much for that. So we're just going to let that dry a little bit. Chad, what do you think? What do you think I should make his cloth thing? It's not really a loin cloth, it's his butt cloth. Yeah, let's go with butt cloth. I think it's a butt cloth. So I'm just doing is going to wait for this to dry, because I don't want to start putting my other colors over it and muddying it up. Please, let's see what this Reaper Triad is that you posted here. And that's one thing that Reaper does have a lot of nice triads, which are very, very nice. Yeah, you got dark shadow, dark skin, dark highlight. Yep. You can see within this there's a lot of these reds for the shadows, and that is, a really nice starting point without a doubt. Okay, so let's start with where will we go? Yeah, it's going to give us a little bit of a reddish brown. Let's try this and see what happens. And that's the thing too, is like, just like there is no just one skin tone recipe for white skin, there's just no one skin tone recipe for black skin either. There's so many different variations, tones, colors. It's just kind of how you highlight and shadow that really will make it read as flesh or not, because all flesh is translucent in one form or the other, and that's always the thing that we're going to be trying to duplicate and replicate, is how do we relay that and imitate that the best that we can. Give this a good shake here. You know what? Let's even go with some light umber. Let's do this instead. This is a nice, good neutral brown. And light umber. I really like the nature of this brown here a lot because it's going to give us the freedom to kind of go into any kind of brown we want to after that. The green's not super dry, but that is okay. So again, my light direction is coming from this side, so like his face is going to be mostly highlighted over here. And his back is going to end up being a good bit darker. My paints are taking a little bit longer to dry today because it is a little bit humid in the building here. So it's been raining a lot around my studio, so things are taking just a little bit longer than usual. And we're just going to let that dry. McFake, what's going on? Herb, I do not have a palette cam, no. I mean, this is where we're at right now with my palette. If there's raw and burnt umber, why isn't there perfectly cooked umber? I don't know, and now I can't think of anything else but that. That's like all I can think of is perfectly cooked umber. Add this guy here. I'm gonna go with, well, I'm waiting for that to dry. I'm gonna paint up a couple different skin tones and a couple different miniatures here. This is a miniature I've already been playing around with here with some different stuff, with different other tones. This is from Redbox Games. This is a pewter miniature. And really the only skin tone you see on him is the face. So let's, again, this is that more kind of a reddish brown I was going to go with originally. That's this blob here. Now I'm using a wet palette here. And I'm not gonna even do a green undercoat on this one. I'm just gonna put this one right on here like this. And the one thing that's nice about this color is because it already has kind of a reddish undertone, it definitely feels a little bit more lifelike, like skin. I figure while I am waiting for coat to paint to dry, might as well just keep painting stuff. So let's see if there's anything else I have sitting over here, primer, that can use some painting. And all kinds of stuff. Now let's paint a chibi too. I'm going to start this off This is from Scale 75. I had this sitting around for a long time. We're going to hit this up with a little bit of green, just a light coating of the green here, just to get a little bit of a base skin tone here. You know, we got his hands and face on that. So our chat's blown past here real quick here. What do we got? Your umber probably dead before attempting to eat it. So I would think, well, if it's perfectly cooked umber, I would imagine that it would be already dead. I would hope. I mean, unless their perfectly cooked umber is still living? I don't know. I'm going to let this red brown I'm using here, I'm just going to kind of let that mix right with the green a little bit. And we're just getting a nice base coat down here right now. I'm just going to try some darker skin tones on basically as many miniatures as I can here, just to kind of get some variation. What are you focusing on? There we go. I'm still waiting for that to dry here. I'm going to put him down in the fan stream so that way the fan will hit him and dry him out a little quicker. Meantime, let's see if there's something else I can paint. Sometimes I feel like I think I painted just about everything else I have. Here's another one. I did this primered and then just a wash to bring out the details on it. Again, this is another Redbox Games miniature here that I've had sitting here for a long time. Let's try give him a slightly different skin tone here. Not quite lightification on any level, but how much of the green live umber? Someone asked how much of the live green should you see under the brown. It's not really gonna be a lot. It's more so, I put the green on, then I kind of put the brown on kind of light and thin, and it's hard to see in the camera, but it just kind of tints it. It doesn't really show through, so to speak, because when you look at someone and they'll have green undertones, but you never look at people and go, oh, if they're green. You know, it's kind of like one of those things of when you work with thin layers, it's the green just kind of sets up of like a undertone precedence. And it's more so like one of those things of when you put the colors over them lightly, it's more so about it mutes the color than it does anything else. So I'm going to do this one a little bit different here. So I'm going to hit his flesh here. And it's kind of like this grayish wood tone here. You can kind of see the difference between all three of these colors here. So this is the light umber, this is that reddish brown I was working with, and then this is the kind of like light cork brown or grayish wood brown. We're going to do some different techniques. Like on this, I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to give it a slight wash of the green. I'll let that green show through a bit. So I'll let his face dry there. And arms, a little bit of arms that you see. And it's one of those things too, especially like the green is going to affect the tan flesh way more, because if you put the tan flesh on, it goes on, it has a little bit of, not really translucence, but it's a very light paint, and the undertone affects it way, way more. So that's kind of where that olive green will affect the Caucasian light skin tones way more than a brown. All right, cool. This is where we're at with him there. Again, I'm going to have the lighting direction coming in this way here. So it's going to be, you know, it's going to get this part of the face, this side of the head, you know, most of this, and then it's going to kind of, as it comes across, it's going to kind of start catching this a little bit more. So I want to use, so we got the light umber. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of this tan flesh into the light umber. Just a little bit. Actually, better yet, I'm going to mix, like, tan flesh will work. This is a real like wood gray. But we are going to use tan flesh because I want to keep this a little bit simpler, because I know I do understand that like when I use my paints, not being able to like relay what color I got it and where I got it from can make that difficult here. So we're going to do is a little bit of tan flesh. And I am just going to use this to highlight that light umber. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my light umber, a little bit of this, a little bit of light umber. And these are both Pro Acryl paints. You can see I'm just trying to get a little bit of a lighter tone at this point. And you can see we're actually moving kind of towards this color anyways. What we're going to do is get a little bit of that in the brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the highlight areas. And I'm not worried about it being super smooth because we will smooth this out later with some glazes. I just want to establish my highlights. And kind of the way I do this is the light's coming in from this direction. So basically I start at the side that's going to get the first highlights and kind of work that direction. So this edge will catch it. And this will be a process where I gotta hit it a few times. As it dries, you can see it starts to darken down. Again, this is just the mix between the tan flesh and the light umber. And you can see it is very translucent. It goes on very, very thin. And as it dries, you can see it starts to darken down. And that's why I put it on in multiple light coats. I'm doing here is just kind of keeping it simple, just catching all of the high parts on the muscles for right now. And where that lighting is coming in from this direction, it's going to catch a lot of the flat surfaces and muscles. So we're going to get much stronger highlights on this side. And I'm going to have the brightest highlights happening on the face itself. And the more I layer this, the more opaque these highlights are going to become. And you see I just keep going over and over and over it. Because I do have that paint rather thin. And we're going to do is like a lot of my shadows on this side are definitely going to be much darker than the shadows on this side. Turn this around here because we definitely want that light is definitely going to hit a little bit on the back side here. I'm just going to hit this with a little bit of highlight, mainly because these are still bulging muscles, so I still want them to have some kind of accent and lighting. Break here in 1 second. We'll play our Stream Raiders game and I'll pause the recording. Kind of where we're at right now. Okay, let's pause. Okay, back to recording. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lighten that up a little bit more. Because this is, you see a little bit of highlight in the back side, but you can see how the highlights are a bit stronger on the front side there. Now we're going to start establishing our light direction even more. Emote finally got approved. Oh, fantastic. That's very cool. Okay. So we have this next layer of highlight that I want. You can see I'm not at the full tan flesh or anything. I want to put this on nice and thin. And this is again, I want to hit this a little bit less than I did last time and more from the direction of the lighting. We're going to really start defining his muscle structure. just barely highlight over here. Again, these muscles will definitely get a little bit more highlights because we're closer to the light source. Make sure I get his fingers here. Get his fingers over here. And you can see his highlights go on a little bit light, but they do dry darker because the acrylic paint will always dry darker. And that's why building up a little bit at a time will add more opaqueness to that, and they'll progressively get a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. See, I want to. And the reason why I chose the light direction coming this way is because I wanted to hit the axe and stuff too. And I want the axe to be in a shadow. So I'm going to have it kind of like he's looking away from the light source. But still have it coming from the front side there. So the blending of layers really is coming from it like I'm not blending any of the layers, I'm just layering them, and a lot of that is coming from the fact that I'm putting the paint on nice and thin, and you want to have your paints nice and thin, and that's where when they're thin. And the other thing too is if you're getting that heavy layered look, it might be that you're putting on a little bit too thick or using too much of a difference in the last color to the next color, because you want it to be just a subtle change, but you're gonna get a little bit of roughness to it. It's not gonna be super smooth yet because we're gonna go in, we're gonna do some glazing to blend these layers together. I'll show you guys my first two emotes are ones I just made, and I literally were just pictures of things I had sitting on my desk. Those are my two first emotes that I made. Yeah, so let me show you here kind of on this piece of paper here. So this is the initial color I basically started with, and about the level of opacity that I put it on. And then these are the layers of highlights. And you can kind of see they are reasonably transparent. Let me see here. So you can kind of see how they go over some letters. You can see, now I put it on a little thick, but you can still see that marker through that. So they should be a little bit transparent. And it's just a tad of water. You don't want to be runny and milky, but you want just a little bit of thinness, that will hope that, later. And that's why you'll see me add a little bit of water and drag these out, down into here, is because I want to make them transparent a little bit and not use it straight from the paint blob itself. And that's why all of my paint blobs start as little blobs and then get pulled out. And like I tend to keep a bit of water on the brush because I want the brush to be moist all the time. I don't want the brush loaded with water because I don't want it, just running everywhere. But I do want it to have a little bit of dampness to it so the paint flows a little better. One thing that would help that emote, Poser Ninja, is if you give it a white outline. So one thing I see is real popular is people will give it the emote a black outline and then a white outline around that. So like if it has a black outline, like my chat window is black right now, and the colors just fade into it. But if it was, so if it's on a white background, the white outline isn't seen and the black outline is, but if it's on a black background, the white outline gets seen and then the black outline gets seen. So it helps add that contrast pop to it. So I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this flesh tone. I'm going to make my brightest highlight for the face here. A little bit more of this. I don't want it to be right at the flesh tone. I want it to be just a little bit darker. Yeah, that's one thing I picked up on from people I saw making emotes. Legendary Lang, good morning. How are you doing? Let's get some more water in my wet palette. Wasn't paying enough attention. Basically, I like to put as much water as I can humanly fit in there without it running up onto the paper itself. Poser Ninja, Zambies makes them, Renru makes them. Renru made my nervous banana there. Okay. So my yes, Sonnet Silence makes them. Yep, there's a lot of people make them. I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. Doing a paint along here. Gonna make it a little bit darker here. And the face is going to have the brightest highlights because I want that face to be more of a focal point there. Just top of his chest there, just a little bit of a highlight there. A little bit of the underside of his neck. So this is basically where I'm going to leave the highlights for right now. If I need to go back and rework them, I will. You can see here's the back side. Front side there. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to start in the back side here because I want the back side to obviously be darker. You can see that light, the dark going on there. Now I'm looking at this here. I do need to highlight up a little bit of the top of his shoulder there. And we do have the paint along Discord thread if anybody is painting along. Because that light's coming in from this side, so I do want to hit the top of his shoulder a little bit here. I almost forgot the skin right here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is get some ink. I'm going to use some burnt umber. And this, it's not this light, not that this is that light, but you can see it has a nice little bit of reddish undertone here. Herb, what kind of wet? Okay, so I have a question here. Thing. Um, oh, okay. Yeah, I asked Bullet Betty. Yeah, Bullet Betty does really good work here. Um, yeah, she did a great job of reading Mrs. Emotes. How can I stop my Herb 34 says, how can I stop my colors, my wet palette from getting watered down? Like the way you just mix those two colors wouldn't work on my palette. My question is what kind of wet palette are you using? Um, because if you notice on my wet palette, like my paper's damp, like it's like if I touch it, like I can, it feels like a cold, damp rag, but it's not wet. Like it doesn't make my hand wet. It just keeps the paint moist and damp and workable. Moist. He looks like a beast with all that muscle. Well, that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted him to look beasty. Get out of the way there. Stop. Okay, so we're gonna got this, making sure I'm getting this shaken up real well here because I don't want that pigment sitting in the bottom. I want to be shaken reasonably well here. What we do is get drag my entire like pallets out with all the little pits and pots or divot things. I don't know what they're called. So this will work. This is a little lid off a plastic container thing here, and I use these all the time just for like little one things. Homemade bamboo paper towel with parchment paper on top. You might very well paper towels work, but the one thing with the paper towels is it can be a little bit harder to control that water because you don't get that depth. You might, my guess is that you're probably getting water on top of the parchment paper, and it might very well just be too much water causing the paint to get all watery and go everywhere. Because your wet palette shouldn't water your paints down for you. It shouldn't dilute them down for you. Because that was a common thing that I see sometimes that people put is, oh, my wet palette isn't diluting my paints properly. And it's like a wet palette's not supposed to dilute your paints. Your wet palette is supposed to keep your paints workable. So you may need to either take some water out or redo the parchment paper. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so I got this shaking really well. You can see now there's no pigment sitting in the bottom. This is Liquitex Burnt Umber. I really like Liquitex. They dry matte. They're super pigmented. You see, you got a nice dark. I'm just gonna put a couple drops in there. That's probably way more than I need. You can see here. Let me. See, this helps out here. You can kind of see that nice reddish brown tone that has there. Maybe this will help painting this over him. Painting him over this. I know he's got a lot of dark tones, makes it a little difficult to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the shadow side here. I'm going to start hitting the shadows of where I want the shadow side to be deepened. So again, the light's coming in from this side. So we're going to hit the underside of his face. I'm going to go over the whole dark side of his face here. I don't think it's helping. I think it's making it worse. Liquitex is a paint brand. Yeah, so they have inks, they have paints. Yeah, using a chamois in your wet palette is absolutely fantastic. That's something I always recommend. It can make life a lot easier because it acts, I mean, it's basically like a thin sponge. and it holds the water really, really well without letting it pull. And you can do this with any kind of ink, or even thin down burnt umber paint. So as I go, I'm just kind of picking the shadow sides and working it down, and then if I need to wipe some off, I just use my finger and hit it real quick to wipe it off. I'm gonna really work on darkening down the dark side of his face there. Back of the head here. The nice thing about the ink is it does have transparency to it already. Down here and deep in cracks and crevices. There's a little bit of a doodad hanging off the back of his thing there. What I'm doing here is because I have very, very little highlight on the backside, I want to bring the shadows down way, way more. I'm doing that by adding a little bit of this reddish mahogany tone. Again, this is burnt umber. I'm just going to add this redness to the skin. It's going to make it feel a little bit more alive. Again, I'm thinking this in the sense, the direction of, the thing with all the compound curves in these muscles, trying to think of a good way to explain how I'm kind of thinking about this. Let me do it this way here. Hi, Gizmo. Yeah, Liquitex makes glazes, mediums. I use a lot of their stuff. I really like Liquitex products a lot. I think they're actually really excellent. Their inks have very, very quickly become my favorite inks. So the way I'm thinking about like all these muscles is whether you have a circular muscle, an oval muscle, you have the way the light's coming in. So my light's coming in from this direction. So, my highlights are going to be along here, and then the shadows are going to be down here. So it's just like a sphere, and it's how I'm breaking down a lot of these muscles kind of in my brain. My high-tech drawings here, you like this? And the deeper that gets, obviously the darker the shadow is going to get. And that's basically all I'm doing with this ink, is taking a little bit of the ink and going, okay, so my darkest is going to be down here. And then as it goes up, it gets lighter and lighter as it fades to the, to the highlight side. And this is basically what I'm doing on all these little muscles, is just kind of thinking about where the shadow versus highlight side is going to be. And it's really same principle, just thinking about it in 3 dimensions is all I'm really doing. And you can kind of see how how his shadow side is getting more and more dynamic the more I work this. And even the underside of his arm here, a nice deep shadow. Just a little bit. I'm just going to go down. And I'm just going to even use this just as quick lining along the strapping on his chest here. I'm just going to use the line along where the armor sits in the flesh there, just to kind of create that visual break. And this side of the leg for sure. You can see what it's doing too is like it's still leaving the highlights that I already did there, but it's tinting them down. So a lot of the highlights are still going to be there, and it's not getting rid of some of the work I already did, but it's smoothing them out, and it's making the highlights on the shadow side not as strong. A little bit in the chest here. It's giving some real nice warm shadows. We're going to hit down here. And you don't have to put your shadows in the exact spots I do on any level, because it's going to depend on how you are doing your shadows and highlights. No, they're nothing like Games Workshop washes. I'm sorry. I read the question wrong. Wolf Dancer, good morning. How's it going? Helps visually. Application is another issue. Yeah, an application is just one of those things that it comes with time and practice. You know, it's one of those things of it's just practice. You know, it's just one of those things of just kind of doing it again and again. You just kind of get the groove of it. But no, I don't use the inks like washes. Occasionally I will wash stuff, but typically it's not in the same sense as the way Games Workshop teaches how to do stuff. Like there's no. That's one thing I hear a lot. It's like, oh, okay, I'm at the wash step. I don't really work in steps like that. You know, every piece, every project, everything is different. That being said, can you use the Liquitex like washes? Absolutely, 100%. You can see here I'm getting nice, rich shadows in the backside here. I'm just kind of going through and hitting pretty much all the shadows at this point because I just want a nice warm shadows. But I will show you real quick kind of if I use this ink just straight on something and just wash it, what happens. Let me see if I have anything primer sitting over here that I can try this on real quick to kind of just show that. Here we go. So this is just Liquitex ink straight. This is just another primer miniature I had sitting here. I honestly forget the name of this dude, but I've been sitting around for a while. Just make sure I dust them off here real quick. But you can see what happens when I put this burnt umber straight over it. And you can see the transparency over the black and white there. Again, I know this is very dark over the black surface, but it's fun. The black background just helps out tremendously, keeping things nice and clean. So you can see this is undiluted, straight out of the bottle. Now, Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily use this like a wash all the time. I mean, there's certain applications, absolutely. You know, if I'm doing a leather bag or something like that, and I just want to give it a nice thing, a whole nice even wash over it, yeah, absolutely. But the Games Workshop washes are a little bit different, and they work a little bit differently. They're a little bit thinner in pigmentation. Well, actually, a lot thinner in pigmentation, in my opinion. You know, and again, it depends on which one it is. Some of them are very weak, some of them are very strong. But you can see what it did right over that black and white. You know, and that was nothing but primer there. You know, and that's kind of what like painting with glazes is like. Where you go right over the primers. So I mean, it does a really nice job. Really made a nice dark and light. I'm doing this to make sure I have it nice and even all over the place. Now that I started, I'm going to finish them at some point here. But I wouldn't do that all over this because that's not what I'm looking to do. The are you asking me what many the four-eyed horned beast thing was there? That you weigh as much as a duck too. Give me 1 second here. I will look it up when we go to do the next Stream Raiders battle here, which is just a few seconds. I'll look it up here because I have another one saved in my eBay watch list because I can never remember the name of this guy. Okay, let's get this battle going here real quick, and while that's going, I will look up. Let's pause real quick here. Okay, we're back to recording. Okay, so trying to think about what. So thinking about like his cloak, which is going to be the only real color on him, is kind of like what color do I want to use? You know, like red. You know, red. I mean, obviously, just about anything is going to work at this point in time because there's really no other colors other than his skin tone, which is more of a neutral tone at this point in time. So I look at it and I kind of go, okay, what do I want to convey here? You know, I could do a nice purple. You know, give it a nice, real nice royal deep purple color, which I think would look good. If I do like an orange, you know, be kind of like a nice autumn feel to it. If I do red, you know, I can make that red feel kind of like an anger thing, like he's angry and pissed as hell kind of feel to it. So it's overall kind of like what kind of feel do I want to give for this guy? But I'm thinking I might do. And Staz has, I tell you what, Staz has a paint along thing that she does every month. She has one right now. The theme is autumn. So let's go with autumn. Let's just really kind of take the control out of my brain and put it in with everything. So we're going to start working on balancing out some colors here. So I'm so glad the camera's freaking out for this. That's good. But let's start with, I'm going to start with this orange here. This is just a nice mid-tone orange. Other oranges I recommend, obviously, are Chimera Colors. Orange is really good stuff. I really like that. It's a nice dark orange. Pro Orange is a real nice lighter orange. But this one's kind of like in between them, has excellent coverage. So we're going to start there. And that way I can kind of go in between them. Yeah, I thought about doing non-metal metallics on this guy, but I think I'm going to do true metal metallics here just to kind of work with some true metal metallics. Again, I have the Dark Star miniature paints that I received recently, and I'm working trying to use them as much as possible to kind of be able to review them and see what I think of them. So we just got a little bit of that orange, and like I said, you can really do any color you want because other than like the fur and the metallics and some strapping, there's really nothing going on here with colors that you have to worry about unless you're going to start bringing colors into everything else. But let's see here. Let's get, I want to use find this brush I want to use. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I'm at a point, like I always kind of stop at a point whenever I'm working shadows and highlights and start cutting in everything else, because I want to see how the shadows and highlights balance with everything else. Because it's really easy to let the gray primer and black white primer, whatever you're using, or undercoats and base coats, really start to influence the way your shadows and highlights look and feel. So it's going to be always good to start mapping out the rest of your colors and shadows and highlights to see how everything balances against each other. I'm really just going to start with the mid-tone here. And this underside here, I'm going to paint real dark so it just doesn't have all this bright orange, but just going to give everything this nice mid-tone orange bright color here. And we're going to use mahogany brown to bring, because I want more of kind of like a burnt orange, deep mahogany color, especially for the shadows. Because obviously the closer this cloak, whatever this is, gets to his skin there and up under this axe head, or axe handle I should say, and stuff, it's going to get darker and darker, because I don't want to have real bright highlights on this, especially compared to his skin tones. Plus we want a little bit of a dark orange anyways, because we want a nice autumn color orange, but give this a nice coverage there. A little bit of this cloak showing through here. Make sure I hit that belt. Make sure I get all of this undercoated properly. Slip there and jam the brush into the bottom of his hand, that's alright. Yeah, I will be using different shades of orange. Right now this is just one solid color of orange, but we're going to be mixing in some mahogany to bring that down and shade that down. But I like this orange a lot because it's a nice like mid-darker orange, and this stuff is the old animation studio paints that I talk about, so it covers really well. So like one of my favorite things about the animation studio paints was the really high pigmentation, really nice coverage with minimal coats, because for the animation cells they had to, so they dry super smooth, super matte, which is really nice. I'll re-hit the dark side of that hand there real quick. We'll go back through with the ink and use that ink to touch it up. Again, and this is really, you can use any color you want here. This is just what I chose to use. So I'm going to do the strapping in black. I'm going to have as like a black leather here. So let me get one of my blacks here. Where's my black paint? So my black paint tends to just like kind of wander around my desk. There we go. One thing that makes it easy is I'm using this AK Interactive 3rd Gen black. This stuff actually works really nice. So just so people can see how I use my wet palette here. So I put that paint straight on there, put a little bit of water, like I just dip my brush into water a little bit, and just kind of pull a little bit out, and just get it thinned down a little bit. And that's pretty much all I'm doing with that. Chris Frozen, what is going on? How are you doing? If you guys do not follow Chris, please do. So we're getting our dark skin tone paint along on here. I'm at a point with the skin tones where I just want to start cutting in the other colors around it, just to make sure my balance is good. And the reason why I'm choosing black is because his skin is already brown. So I want that strapping to stand out against his skin there. Sorry, I'm wandering kind of all over the place on my screen. Again, this video will be uploaded to the YouTubes later. I'm just going to hit this here, get a little metal doodad here. So I'm going to do is, anywhere there's going to be metal also, I'm just going to hit it in straight black. That way all of my metallics have a nice undercoating. So we're going to do some experimenting with the dark star metallics today. Mainly because sometimes metallics can just be fun to paint. But starting the metallics from a black on a dark star does seem to give a much nicer effect. We got some fur sticking out of the wrist guards or whatever they are. 3-4 different bottles of black paint. Yeah, black paint's always good to have lots of. It's funny because mine usually gets used for like very specific shadows and some lining and freehanding and stuff like that, but it's always amazing how much I go through. I don't typically mix it into other colors to make shadows. Again, just having a nice even base coat on everything else too really helps set the tone for the flesh, and being able to see that not having like super light highlights from the primer. And because if you're in the middle of painting a miniature and everything just feels off balance, sometimes just cleaning up, like anywhere there's primer showing, anywhere there's funny edges on a base, you know, just painting those things black, if nothing else, can really help check and make, you know, when you're visually trying to check to see if things feel balanced or not, having stray like highlights and, you know, even if it is just overpainting that you know is going to get painted over later, this kind of stuff can really help clean this stuff up very quickly. So I know this axe obviously is not going to be white on any level. Ramus, thank you very much for the alert. Paint Miniatures, what's going on? Yes, I'm pretty sure that this dude would just straight out choke slam me. Obviously, isn't that freaking difficult. And even his loin fur. I'm gonna look at this and go. I'm gonna assume these are just his pubes. This isn't a furry loincloth. This is just straight out his bush. He's a real man. One thing we'll use black for is like up underneath here where it's just straight out, like, because the casting sometimes, like, the stuff gets cast much thicker than it actually needs to be or should be, and that's just a limitation of casting miniatures. Or casting anything really, but just using that black up in there, like up under his fur loincloth thing there. I almost hear him say boy. Yeah, boy. There's a funny YouTube video. 2 blacks, 2 dark grays. Nice. Yeah, dark grays are another thing that can be really interesting too, because you can have neutral dark grays, warm dark grays, cool dark grays. And it's like I have a selection of grays, just because of that, because of depending on what kind of feel I want stuff to have, whether I want it to be cool or warm or neutral. And I find I use either cool or warm more often than not. Occasionally I'll use neutral, but very rarely do I, because I just tend to find that to be a very boring feel to it. And we're going to have more of a light tan bone ivory fur going on here. That way it gives it some contrast, and I'm not trying to do a dark brown or a dark black fur. The nice thing about tans, browns, blacks, stuff like that, they're all neutral colors that you can use with pretty much anything, and your eyes aren't going to like see it. Like, you'll see it, but it's not going to distract your eyes. Your eyes aren't going to go, oh boy, there's too much color going on here. Where if I start just giving them like, purple leather strapping, could I make it work? Sure, but you also run a risk of making things way too busy. And some pieces and sculpts and stuff just don't lend themselves well to that kind of stuff, just given the nature of the piece itself. Which is one of the reasons why I like choosing a lot of the color schemes that I normally work with, because I like the challenge of trying to make them work on some of the crazy pieces I do them on, and how I can figure that out. Where some pieces make it much easier to do some of the crazy color schemes I do than others. And you can see here how much that little white dot stands out. I mean, it is just like a tiny white dot, but it's like a beacon when everything else is, painted black. And that's why, like, undercoating and priming in black can be really nice, because in case you miss something, it's not going to make it stand out like crazy. We're at with him right now. So let's get this orange under control here. So we have this nice mid-orange, and we're gonna go straight to shadowing up here. So let's get, I'm gonna use this mahogany. Actually, let's use this mahogany. Use up some of my old stuff. Basically same paint though. Nice deepish reddish brown. Use some of my older paints first before I use new ones, but mahogany is the color I'm using regardless. Or irregardless, if you want to. I want to drive all my English major type people nuts. So let me check my notices here just to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of water and just thin this out, because I want this to be nice and thin. And I'm going heavily over this here. is just really darkening down this orange because I don't want it to be super bright on any level. Mainly what we're going to do is end up having very stark, quick transitions from dark to light with this. I'm going to do something a little bit of this orange, and I'm going to actually start just mixing that right in there. Let's get rid of this here. And what I'm doing is just wet blending this orange right into there. What I'm going to do is kind of a couple variations of this orange on here. What I'm doing is where this flares out is where the orange is going to be brightest because of the way the light's going to catch down and the way the light will catch on the flare out of the cloak itself. You see it really desaturated and brought that down very, very quickly there. For gray primer, got some nuts in the base color is darker. Yeah, and it's one of those things of the other color sitting on it can always affect the way your brain sees it and views it even when you don't think that it is. So this is kind of where we're at with him right now. So we're going to let that orange cloak dry because I did some heavy wet blending on it. And then we'll go back and do some more tweaking on that. So what we'll do real quick is kind of grab some of these other ones. I was working on some skin tones for where he's just the face. So what we're going to do is go in and I'm going to, this was this color here. So what I'm going to do is get some more of the tan flesh tone here. Mix it in a little bit. And this is giving me more of like a tanner Caucasian, but we'll so then I'm just going to do a real simple job on this guy here just to bring his face back down. This skin tone here was this brown. So what we're gonna do is treat this one a little bit different because it's already kind of light. Which that brown was, which brown was that? That was this brown here. Is actually what brown that was. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take some of my burnt umber ink here. And we'll just basically put this one straight on here because he's got real deep features and recesses. And this is where like every miniature you work on can be slightly different just based off of. Let me turn this, brighten this up just a little bit here. Just based off of, you know, how it's sculpted, you know. Where this has a real strong sculpt with, you know, strong ridges and highlights and shadows. I'm sorry, not ridges, highlights and shadows, oh my gosh. With just like strong facial features and stuff like that. So like there's not a lot of, you know, space for smooth transitions to begin with. So I can get away with just doing a nice wash on this. And that was a very simple two-step. Horde, what's going on? Everything looks great. Perfect. All right, Horde. Very cool. Very glad you did. Okay, recording again. Okay, so this is where we're at with him right now. Just get these out of the way here. See a nice kind of dark autumny orange going on here. And I'm going to get some of this Chimera color orange here. Bring some of that on here to bring that up a little bit. And this has a kind of like a nice deeper tone to it, as you can see here. I'm just going to wet blend this straight in there. A little bit of a stronger orange there. See, that was a little bit too desaturated for my taste on the last one there. So I'm just going to kind of use this all over just to smooth this out a little bit here. And I am just experimenting a little bit here to kind of see what happens and just try some things. Snack Bunch, thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing painters to keep up with in general. I want to give away last week and random stream at like 3 a.m. Very cool. That's awesome. Heck yeah. What'd you win? Winning giveaways is always fun for sure. Planetary, intergalactic. Alright, so let's nice. Little bit of a blend that in with a little bit of a darker orange there. Get blended in with that brown. And one thing when you're wet blend, especially on this too, you'll see me moving it a lot. And the reason I'm doing that is because it starts to kind of make its own highlights from being wet. And I want to be careful with that. Because what happened is then I get the false highlights where I think that was highlighted and find out that it wasn't once it dries. What I'm doing is I'm mixing my light orange in with the dark orange a little bit here and just kind of wet blending that in. Just get a little bit of a brighter orange. Like I don't want it to be super, super crayony bright on any level, but I don't want it to be super desaturated either because I still want it to show up here. I'm just working at mahogany, and basically what I'm doing is working this mahogany, this dark Chimera orange, and this lighter orange here, and just kind of like working between the three. Just trying to balance out my highlights and shadows, making sure I have like a nice transition where it flares out, it catches some. Because as it flares out, it's going to catch the light as the light's coming from this direction here. I'm just going to have the edge of this just have a little bit of a highlight there just to pick the edge up. This edge a little bit of a highlight. This edge just a little bit here. Drop. Right in here, I want to make sure I get this highlighted up. This is definitely the orange, and the light's going to catch this decently well. It doesn't need to be super, super bright, but just enough that it catches it so you can see that orange. I just throw that over there, it's cool. Oh, the nanas. Let's see what you said. Post a link. Yeah, feel free to post links. Links are... yeah, just set that anywhere. Yeah, basically, my brush caught off of my... light arch and just went flinging out of my hand. No, I appreciate you asking. Didn't pull up anything. Drink of water here real quick. Actually, let me refill my drinking water real quick. When I'm refilling my drinking water, just look at that. Sure, no problem. Okay. So we got our orange balance out here. Let's get a little bit of... again, when it comes to colors of what you're choosing, what you're doing, you can pretty much kind of deviate as you wish. I'm just kind of choosing to keep this more kind of like a autumn feel theme to it, because like I said, Staz is having a she calls them Staz along, where it's like a paint along all month, where they have a theme. Last month was fire. This month is autumn. So I figured, what the heck, might as well make this fit in there. And I'll do a nice autumn base for him. So what we're gonna do is hit the fur up. So I'm gonna hit the fur with this German Sea beige World War II, because I just like this as a nice kind of tan khaki base. And then what I'll do is I'll go back and hit that fur with a wash, and it'll pick out all the details. Actually, what I'll end up doing is dry brushing it first to pick up the details, and then hit it with a wash to kind of blend it all together there. But I know this is kind of a weird base, but by the time I'm done with the wash, you won't notice it. And you won't have that weird kind of feel to it anymore, because I am going to darken this down a good bit, but I want to have a nice lighter base to start with before I start washing it down and all the fur get and all the cracks and crevices get cleaned up. Okay, I don't see any more fur from the front side on the greaves. So I'm going to hit the greaves from the back side here. Especially because on the back side here, I don't want these to be super bright and draw your eye all over the place here. So where it goes over the black strapping on the legs, on the greaves here, I will try to be as careful as possible, because I don't want to have to repaint those straps again and then have to fit the brush in between all the fur and stuff like that. And then for the little bit of leather boots he has, what I'm going to do is do a little bit of an orangish leather. Just going to bring a little bit of that orange tone down in there without it actually being orange. So it'll be more of like a reddish orangish leather tone. Make sure I'm trying to keep where the fur is everywhere that it should be. His wrist guards have a little bit of fur the whole way around here. Just a little bit though. The reason why I went with it, I'm doing kind of like the tan fur here, is because it does create some contrast without adding another color to the mix and creating a weird balance. Again, I know right now it's really bright and bland, but like once I get it washed down, it's definitely gonna feel a lot better. That's as far down as the fur goes on that. Right there. Okay, so we got the fur taken care of here. So I'm going to dry, while I'm waiting for that to dry, what I'll do is I will look at one thing here real quick. Okay. I'm going to finish this battle. I'll switch to mobile. Can't control things at the moment. Lady recognize Karu, no worries. Nitro Hero Ninja, what is going on? Maybe that they're not showing it because they only had a couple of them in stock and stopped showing it because they ran out. However, it's basically pre-painted instead of the Brewers Guild miniatures. They were priced at $100. Nice, very cool. That's awesome. Snack Punch, that's awesome that you gave your friend one of these handles. That's a good friend. Very good friend. Yeah, I love these Game Envy handles. They're so nice. They make my life so easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some gray and just kind of go along the edge of the black leather there. I'm going to use some Reaper Shadowed Stone here. I really like this nice dark warm gray. Along the edge of the belt there. Hit along the back side there too. Might as well hit the highlight in the back of the greaves here and the straps. As much as you can see anyways. And what we'll do is get my lighter warm gray from them, which is somewhere here. Again, that one was Shadowed Stone. Also filled and colored like Renaissance Fair Potion bottle form. Oh, that's awesome. If you have any pictures of that, you're more than welcome to post it. So this is the Weathered Stone, which is like a nice lighter warm gray. What we're going to do is we're just going to hit the edges of that strapping there, just make that stand out a little bit more. I'm doing is letting the edge of the strap pick up the highlights from the brush. And just creates a real nice dynamic highlight that makes it a little bit easier to see that strapping. Yeah, Procuro paints airbrush real well. I mean, I always thin mine down. I know I've seen a number of artists, I think like Wapo doesn't thin his at all. I've seen plenty of other artists, you know, airbrush them, they airbrush them straight. I always thin mine. So we're going to take this deck tan color here, which for the cloth, if you have Games Workshop paints, you know, Screaming Skull, just drop that there, it's cool. You know, Screaming Skull, whatever this is, bone, and I guess that I have one other Games Workshop paint I have sitting here that makes a really nice bone color triad, which I don't know where I shuffled that paint off to, so I apologize. I had it sitting here somewhere and shuffled it somewhere, and I'm sure being a little ass. Oh no, it was sitting with the other ones in Still Legion. So these tend to make a really nice bone triad. We're going to use a little bit of focus. There we go. But like when I thin my Pro paints to airbrush, I always use a little bit of water and a little bit of drying retarder from Badger. And this is like my go-to dry retarder for pretty much everything, which I need to order more. Okay, so we're going to just take my deck tan here. And I'm just going to pull it right out. I didn't even thin it because I'm basically going to dry brush a bit with it here, what I'm going to do. Because I just want to pick out the lighter tones and colors, and I'm starting a little bit stronger with it because I am going to do a lot of washing to this to bring it back down into more of a neutral wood gray type fur coloring, because obviously I don't want this to be this blatantly bright on the back side of this at all, nor on the front, because, you know, I don't want his crotch piece to be the showpiece on him on any level. So I start bright, and I'm going to wash down a lot. Now on like these edges here, not a lot of dry brushing I can do because it's such a small area. I'll get dry brushing all over his flesh tone, and then all my flesh tone stuff will be undone, and I don't want to go back and redo it. So we will head this up here a little bit. So I'm going to let that dry before I hit washing, before I start washing. If I start washing it at this point in time, it can turn into a real muddy mess real quick here. One thing I will do, so like where this orange, let's see if I can get the light to show it up here. So that orange came in and I hit the greaves there a little bit with the orange. And it's throwing the greaves off a little bit here in the orange because it looks like I have an orange highlight randomly in there. So I'm just going to kind of clean that up with the greaves with the black again. Just kind of keep it nice and balanced looking. I'm just cleaning up the orange a little bit all over the place here, anywhere that I might need to re-hit because I got a little bit too much orange anywhere. Letting the black line happen there. Okay. So let me get my dark star paints, because while that's drying, I'm going to get my dark star paints and we'll pick out some metallic colors here. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of, I got the whole set of dark star paints here I'd purchased because I always wanted to try them. So let's separate some colors out here, see what we got. We got antique gold is a nice color. This is antique gold. The bright steel, I definitely want to do some steel on here. One color I like that they really have is silver verde, which is a greenish silver. So might get interesting with that, doing a little bit of greenish in there with his between the flesh tones and the orange. Get some Regency gold. I don't want to use brass. Maybe bright silver. We got some blue steel, kind of like that a lot. Black and bronze, tarnished steel. Pewter would go well with that blue steel. Metallic thinner. We got some royal gold here. Keep it kind of like in a warmer gold. This Victorian gold's nice because this is a nice greenish gold, which with the silver, bright steel, pure. What I do with the silver verde? Just put that right back. Pretty sure I did it. I think I put that right back in there. Tarnished steel. No, am I looking at it? Pewter, silver, bright steel, blue steel. Oh, silver verde. You know, like these would make nice highlights and shadows of each other here. But I don't think that's what I want to get into today. Let me keep this. So we got aged copper, fine gold, So we got, I think we got a nice gold triad here. We got antique gold, royal gold, and fine gold. Kind of keep it a nice warm gold triad. We're definitely gonna do some copper here. So we got aged copper, polished copper, which is what I used on this guy here for his helmet. I think we're going to bring some copper accents in there because I really like copper a lot, and I think it's one of my favorite colors. Okay, we got steel, we got graphite, we got pewter. I don't think I'm going to use the blue steel or bright silvers right now. I'm going to get my steels mapped out first. Them up. So let's start with steel, nice dark color here. And some of this is definitely going to get in experimental territory for me using this new paint here. Taking me a while to work, but it's WebDerp, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate you guys watching and hanging out always. Helps out tremendously, of course. I know I say it a lot, but I absolutely mean it. So we're going to go with, start with just a darker steel here. Anywhere I know that I'm going to have silver, I'm just going to throw the steel down. So we're definitely going to have some, copper is going to be more of an accent color, and the steel is going to be more of the mainstay color. Yeah, I like that. Nice dark steel. Get the wrist guards up here. it's still hanging out in there. And even as I apply the metals, I always keep my brush a little wet so the paint flows. Make sure I get the silver the whole way around there. All right. We'll get this battle started here in 1 second. Record is pausing here. Or yeah, record is pausing. Pause this recording. Let's get back to recording here. There we go. Okay, back to recording. Welcome back, everyone. I'm gonna keep putting paint down on the blade here. Make sure I have that steel, a nice dark steel color there. Greaves painted up here. Make sure I get the greave from all the greave pieces here. That way I'm not having to go back and redo any metals. Which I mean, there can always possibly be touch-ups of metal and any color, really. Not a big deal. And then we're using the Dark Star Metallics here. Move this post here, makes it a little easier for you guys to see here. Yeah, try and get this in the light here as much as I can. I know it can be a little tough to see what I'm doing here because I'm just going against the greaves meet the orange in there. I wanted to keep that as clean as I possibly could. Especially being metallic and the shadows there can create weird reflection points if you get too much in there. So we got a little bit of a belt buckle thing here, got a little bit of a connection point here with the metal. Point there. Oh yeah, and then he's got this little doodad thing here. Don't know what it is, but we'll paint it silver for now, so in case I forget, at least it's painted silver. That's really about it for metallics and stuff. He's not super ornate on any level with stuff, which is good. Web drip, no, you're good. I totally understand. As I said, he's like one of those things I just kind of did for fun as a project, so I'll show you here real quick what I plan on doing with him. Probably something like use one of these Green Stuff World containment molds and do some poured resin in there. Like do a little kind of like ocean thing, like he's just floating on the ocean on a little board or something like that. Maybe do the bigger one, give me a little bit more space and just have some nice deep blue water with a little bit of gentle waves. Which any excuse to use more resin I'm in. that's what I've been trying to do, is really kind of start to be able to focus and think more about like little scenes and how to really make these things stand out more and have more character and more of a story to them, instead of just, oh, cool, neat little painted piece, you know. So I'm going to give his fur a wash there. I'm going to get my other umber ink, which will be, that's green. Let's put the green back. Where's, so this was burnt umber. This had a bit of a reddish tone to it. So we're going to use raw umber, which is just a nice straight brown. And it's going to help keep all the fur neutral. Whoop. I don't need a lot, so I'm going to literally just put this straight on my palette here. I don't need a lot, and I'm not going to thin it, so it's just going to, it'll just sit there nicely in the palette, just like that. I'm just going over all the fur with this ink, just straight, because I want it to darken it down a lot. The nice thing is it does pick out all the ridges and runs in all cracks and crevices of the fur there. And I can even go in here and darken up the underside of this again. I'm going to just, even going to hit the shadow side a little bit with this. Make shadow side a little bit darker. And this is just the raw umber. Okay, so that's got to dry a little bit before I can hit it again and keep darkening it down. Shifty, what's going on? Throw it on the ground. Yep, that's pretty much my mode, is just kind of throw it anywhere. There's some VOD company visiting. Echo side, no worries, take her easy. Server upgrade number 3 going in. I have to wait 25 minutes, so I'll continue to watch. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would say Darkstar is very, very close in consistency. It's a little bit thicker, but not like in a bad way. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's so thick you can't spread it. It's still very, very, very fluid. It's just a little bit, I don't know, firmer might even be the word to use. But the one thing I will say, one thing that I hear people say a lot too is that Monument Hobby paints do dry kind of fast, like especially on a wet palette and stuff like that, where typically I try to work with just a dot of it as much as I need to. But a lot of times, even on the wet palette, it will dry up a little bit faster than my other paints. You know, like this was put on there a while ago, it's still good. You know, and that's pro acryl there for sure. I'm trying to think what else is pro acryl on here. I know that's already used up, but so I mean, sometimes it lasts, sometimes it gets a little bit wonky. Splat. What's going on? Mini trebuchet. Hell yeah. So I want a trebuchet. Anyone who watches Bianca, I see that she just started streaming. Okay, so now I have this graphite on here. I'll use my good Game Envy brushes for the metallics. I'm not sure how these... Some metallic paints will tear up Klinsky Sable brushes in a heartbeat. Some are a little bit more gracious. So I'm not sure, so I'm not going to use my Game Envy brushes on here. But this is the Dark Star right here. And you can see, I mean, it's got, you know, a nice smooth consistency. You know, the one thing that I'd say Dark Star has going over the Monument Hobbies, again, this is not about bashing Monument Hobby at any level, because Dark Star, you know, their specialty is metallics, is the variety of metallics they have. Like, that's like all they do is metallic paints. And they have a lot. And usually what I do here is just put it on real thin. And then I build up the coats as I need to. And I almost glaze my metallics as I work the highlights up would probably be a good way of thinking of it. The light's coming from this direction, so I'm going to put my highlights stronger in the middle, of course. And I'll paint them just like I'm painting non-metal metallics. Make sure all the edges get nice highlights. We'll have that kind of go right there. We're going to have highlight going down the edge here. You know, kind of key to getting good metallic coverage and like a nice smooth highlight, so it looks like one metallic surface and doesn't look like just a whole bunch of paint globbed over each other. It is doing it thin, like multiple thin coats with the metallics and kind of letting it layer up will give you that look of a nice actual piece of metal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the highlight down there and where there's curved, kind of like in the middle there. So we have the light coming in from this direction here, so I'm going to build this up from here. Just even though this isn't metallic, I still want to treat it with shadows and highlights and the direction the lighting is coming from there. You can kind of see what I'm doing here with it. Catching down here. We want to make sure we give all the edges highlights, because all of your edges will be catching highlights for sure. Light pull down in there. And it'll build up a little bit in the middle there, build up at the edge out here. because the light coming in from this direction here, we're going to do is light's coming in from this side, so we'll have it build up here and then work its way down. Back to the dark steel a little bit here and work that back in there. That's the other thing too. You can always wet blend and do whatever you do with regular paints. You can do the same thing with metallics. Like, just because it's a metallic paint doesn't mean you have to really treat it any different. I mean, there are certain things. There are certain things about the metallic paints that you need to really consider when you're painting with them, because they are shiny and they have metallic pigment to them. But for the most part, you don't have to really worry about them not blending or mixing or anything like that. So we're going to have a little bit of build up here. Light coming in from this direction here, we'll have it catch down here. Not entirely sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and decide here where I want to do some copper, or if I want to do any copper, but for now I'm just going to highlight it all in silver just to make my life easier. I'm doing is going through trying to catch all the edges. Down in here. I'm just letting this build up slowly here. Josh, what's going on? How are you doing? Grimguard, what's going on? Rex is sealed, Matt. Post and finish. Nice, Mystic Axe. Boneser says, I want to build a medium-sized trebuchet to launch golf balls on the golf course behind me. Nice. I'm doing well, thank you for asking. So we're doing our paint along here. The darker skin tones is kind of where we're at with this guy. Right now we're working on some of the silver highlights here a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot of it. Gonna want to catch all the edges and rivets, and so we're gonna have a highlight build down in there. And kind of the way like light almost reacts like a fluid on the metals, I guess, is an easy way for me to, at least is the way I understand it. It's almost like a fluid, so it's all of your edges are gonna all your hard edges on the metallics and non-metal metallics are always going to be catching highlights, you know, because that where it comes as hard edges, as fine points and stuff like that will always be your bright highlights. And then kind of the way I always do my reflections is the light kind of pulls down. So the light's coming in from this direction, it's hitting the blade and kind of pulling down in this way, like where light would kind of like collect away from the light almost, is the easiest way I can think of explaining it, of how I kind of view it in my mind, of how it acts on surfaces. We will go through and we will get back and define some of these metallics a little better with some washes and glazes also. So this isn't going to be the only thing we're doing, of course. Greaves here, just trying to make sure I get these covered here. Got a little bit of metallic, I don't know, clamp or something on the belt there. We actually have one right here too. Just hit that real quick there. What I'm gonna do is I'm keeping this very thin and just kind of hit it with nice thin coats as we go here. Reaper paints, tries the silver tone metals, natural steel, alien colors. Go from darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest. It just depends on what you're painting, Mystic Axe. I mean, that's entirely kind of up to you. Play dodgeball with it. Oh, that's awesome. Dodgeball with a trebuchet would be amazing. And some old Gundam wing models. Nice. Yeah, and doing light to dark to light, it just depends on what you're doing. Are you doing non-metal metallics? Are you doing true metal metallics? Are you just doing regular metallics? Are you doing, you know, it's where's the lighting coming from? Each piece is going to be unique in the way it works. Okay, so we're going to get this pewter here as my final highlight. Aim sucked, I imagine. I mean, I typically like to start with lighter colors and go darker, but like on this piece, I started darker and worked my way up. And then I glazed down, you know, kind of based off what I'm doing. This is, I'm sorry, I went in and out real quick. So this is the Dark Star Steel. We have the, Dark Star Graphite is the second, you know, mid-tone. And then we have the Dark Star Pewter as my highlight here. And we're definitely going to highlight less than we highlighted last, because I want these highlights obviously to be less than the last highlights, because, you know, you just want to build that up there. Again, we're going to catch all the edges here to make the edges all nice and bright, because the edges are going to catch all the lighting there. There's like a collection point of the way to kind of, again, thinking about it as water or a liquid, is it pulls all of the corners there, like the water kind of, like, think about the lighting is like running towards that corner there, and it collects the strongest at that, you know, hard edge or corner or whatever you want to call it. You know, same thing, kind of like as these pieces curve up here, you know, we're given like where that light's coming in from this side and it's going up that curve where they bulge out is kind of where that light is going to catch, except it's instead of having like a real harsh line, it's just going to be kind of like a nice little soft highlight area. But it's going to follow the whole way up there. And what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll black line in between these panels here, and it's going to really help clean that up and really give the feel of the separation of the panels like it's a movable armor instead of one solid chunk of silver. I do that last. Again, just letting the edges pick up paint off the side of the brush there. And one of the most important things I'm doing is I don't want, the way I do these is I want to make sure that it still has the illusion of the light direction. And that's why where I place the highlights and shadows is very important, because even though it's a little shinier, well, a lot shinier, because it is a metallic paint, I need to make sure that it still reads that lighting is coming from this direction when you look at him. That's where these little things right here, I'm just going to get hit on the upper edge of them. Across the edge there. For Reaper, paints, airbrush, I had one. Yeah, I mean, I add water and dry retarder to everything I airbrush. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend adding it to the Reaper paints. But I haven't really airbrushed Reaper paints yet myself. As a rule of thumb, I just add, water and dry retarder to everything I airbrush, even airbrush paints themselves, because it just always helps them flow better. Every harsh edge, or hard edge, or whatever you want to call it, not necessarily harsh, but every hard edge is going to get that highlight. Make sure I'm highlighting the bottom edge of that axe also. Alright, Miss Dax, bye. Deckflow, what's going on? Welcome back. Rach, I think it was like you inputted it just as it was getting ready to go off there. Sorry if I'm positioning this in weird ways here. I'm just trying to make sure I catch all the rivets and edges and from like every angle here. Some of these are a little bit weird to catch. And once I do some black lining on this here, it's definitely going to make this stand out a little bit better. Highlight along your foot there. Now on this side of his boot and body and stuff like that, like I'm hitting the hard edges, but I'm not really hitting any of the surfaces with this brighter highlight because it is the darker shadow side, so I don't want the highlights to be any stronger than the bright side. I still gonna want to hit all the hard edges though, so they catch and reflect more. And this I will hit just a little bit. Here's just a little bit of decoration on this one here. Oh, battle's ready to begin. Alright, let's see here. Nanners. New. But, okay, there we go. Back to recording. Back on this. Is what, Goldar the Barbarian. Almost feels weird in the silence now. So we're going to get a little bit of this. So I'm going to hit the fabrics again. But Benita Tambin Joga, if you have a way to put a filter where it just filters out the fan background noise and doesn't, clip on and off, you're more than welcome to post that. That would be super helpful. But until then, it's just just got to deal with the fan noise. But I actually had a number of people saying that, that the fan background noise is actually how they usually check to make sure my stream was still running in the background while they listened. And then when it was like just dead silence, it just kind of like threw them off. You see here, I'm just using this, again, this is just raw umber ink straight out of the bottle. Well, I mean on the wet powder. Well, I turned the fan off. I think that's what they were hearing is the hissing is the fan and not an actual hiss. Where you guys are aware that it's a fan, where I guess someone new might just think it's a weird hissing, even though it's not. Even before too. Yeah, I have no idea. I know sometimes Twitch has weird issues. Yeah, but if anybody ever has advice, that's actually helpful and useful, always feel free to put it there in chat. I'm always open to advice and recommendations on how to do things and stuff like that. to better improve quality of audio or video or anything like that. Actually, right now, it's actually kind of nice because it is not too bad in the building because it's been raining a lot and it's actually been chill. So, like, the temperatures around here went from 90 degrees to like 60, like, real quick. Like, it was like all of a sudden just randomly. And now, like, everything, that's why I'm not wearing a tank tops, is because yeah, poor glitter splitter. For those who don't know, glitter spitter is the name of my fan. How many commissions do I have at the same time for now? You mean like actual clients at once that I have, or how many? See, that's a hard thing to say because, like, I mean, I might actually have, like, if I stop taking commissions, maybe another year or so out of commission work that I can do, all of them. But I have a constant, like, really kind of train to them, always kind of like coming in and out. You can see it really darkened down. No, camera's doing weird stuff. You can see it really darkened down the what do I call it? The fur. But so it has a nice differential, different color that it stands out and is different than a skin tone. But let's get some black ink here. What I'm gonna do is get a little bit of Liquitex black ink. I'm just gonna black line around the metal and between the metal panels here. But in the same week, how many clients do you have to satisfy? It just depends. I mean, my clients are usually very flexible and they understand the way I work and they like the work I do. And most of my clients just want high-end work and they just want it done right. And they're not so concerned about the timelines. But at any given moment, I might have 10 different clients, with work actually sitting here for them. And it fluctuates. It just depends. Sometimes it might be a couple weeks before I deliver anything to anyone. Sometimes I'm delivering a couple things a week to people. That's one of the reasons why I kind of bounce around from job to job, is so I can keep moving on stuff and still be able to get good quality work, but not get bogged down by any one job and any one job start to, like, wear me out. Get checker, what's going on? I am having a great day. We're doing our paint along miniature here. What I'm doing is just black lining between the panels to create my occlusion shadow. And help clean up them metallics. What I'm going to do is black line along the leather strapping here because it'll help that leather strapping pop out a little bit more. Black line where the fur meets the metal. Where the fur meets the flesh. Where the flesh meets the handle of the axe. Where the axe head meets the mounting point. Around the rivets. Sir Mantastic, what's going on? Okay, yeah, I think the camera is being weird. Give me 1 second here. Let me pause the recording real quick here. See if maybe, because I know sometimes just kind of refreshing the scenes help out. Kit checker, yes, yeah. So when I do the paint-alongs, that's kind of like the premise is everyone kind of gets the same miniature and follows along. And what I'll do is, I pick the miniature, so I'm probably going to pick a new miniature today or whatever for next month's paint along. Next month's paint along is going to be painting like space galaxy scenes and stuff, and nebulas, and pretty much like how I did the Galaxy Doe Constructor. I'm going to go step by step on how I do that. So I'm going to find a nice miniature with some big open spaces, maybe a dragon with some wings that I can do that on. Kind of do something cool there. And then, or a cloak of a wizard, something that's affordable for everybody to grab. And then people can either follow along with me or watch the VOD later, or they can check the video up when I load it up on YouTube. Instead, I try to teach it in a way where people don't have to have the same exact colors as me, because I don't want people to get hung up on just the colors I'm using. I want people to understand the principles of what I'm doing. So if you don't have the same browns, it's okay. You can still figure it out. And you can have slight variations, which is fine. It does not have to be exactly the same thing I'm painting right now. I'm just kind of black lining everywhere. Surfaces meet just to create nice, clean shadow lines and breaks. Okay, I see the camera's still glitching like crazy. Let me fix this. Let me just try to fix it here. Here, start recording again. All right, start recording again. Hopefully we can. This is True Metal Metallics, but when you're painting True Metal Metallics, well, the glitching isn't the camera finding the miniature. It's the camera. It's OBS glitching out is what it is. OBS does some weird stuff sometimes. But this is True Metal Metallics. We did a non-metal metallic paint along on here, which is up on my YouTube, and it's just literally uploaded to raw stream. So this was the very first paint along we did was this non-metal metallic paint along. Then last month's paint along was the object source lighting, which this video is now uploaded to YouTube also. Again, just straight stream. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so basically all I did for this was just work from a light to dark. Or dark to light, I should say. What I'm doing right now is just black lining around all the different features and where things meet to create my occlusion shadow. Love that. I love that word. I don't know why, it's just a fun word to say. It makes me feel smart when I say it. So like where the boot trim is, where the boot trim meets the front toe part. What's going to happen is it's going to make the highlights stand out a little bit more. because I want to control like the shadow. So what I'm going to do is I use a little bit of the black ink right on the shadow of the piece there, and you can see it doesn't really change the transition look, but it kills the reflection point. So that way, even though it's shiny, it doesn't add anything more to it. I'm going to hit this right where the flesh meets the metal. A little bit in the ear there. So it's hard to see there, but he has a little bit of a smirk going on. So we're going to go in, we're going to work some highlights on that smirk to make that stand out a little bit more. I'm always a fan of a smart ass smirk. Kit Checker, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Tartan Shadow. Using an airbrush for the first time yesterday to prompt some figures. Made practice with it, was squeezing the shit out of it. My hand went numb. For some reason, subconsciously, the more detailed I want, the tighter I held the damn thing. Nah, that's fair. I can understand that. I think people would actually probably be surprised how like lightly and loosely I actually grip a paintbrush. So there's been times that like paintbrushes just fall out of my hands because I have such a loose grip on it. Okay, so we got, again, I'm just using this black ink here to try and make sure I catch all the trim pieces here where the trim pieces meet like the main greave shield part, I guess you'd say. And it's going to really help those stand out. Yeah, I love it when people post in the paint along thread on Discord though, and we can see, I can see people's kind of results of what they did. I always think that's a blast. And I'm always very impressed with everyone's work, by the way. And then it's just using a little bit of this ink to go in here and just kind of kill some of that reflection. Help better control my shadow and highlights. Oh, I love using an airbrush, 100%. Oh, I was just using. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your comment about what I was actually using. So I'm just using black ink as a shadow color on the metals for right now. So I'm still thinking I might add some copper in there, but I want to do the boots in kind of like an orangish leather to help bring some of that orange into that. What time is it? Okay, we got 5:58 to the battle here. 1 second here to check something. Okay. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna up the highlights on his face there because I really want to kind of bring out that little smirk thing he's got going on. So we're gonna get some more of tan flesh and more light umber because I don't want to use straight tan flesh on them, but I do want to lighten up the light umber. I'll put a little bit of each, a teeny tiny drop of each on my wet palette here. Oh yeah, the smoothness you can get out of an airbrush is amazing. So I don't want to use my fine brush for the mixing here, so I'm just gonna, I need some more water in my wet palette here. Okay, so we got my lightest highlight color right here now, where it's not quite tan flesh, but just a little bit darker, and it's going to dry darker too. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get my fine brush here, nice fine point to it, and let's get my headset or my magnetic, or not magnetic, my magnifying headset there. This way I can see right where my brush is going. Falling Sandy Studios, what is going on? So we're gonna, give me 1 second here. For anyone just joining us, we're here doing a paint along here today. Yeah, working on some darker skin tones here. So I can get this face to show up here. We just got to raid here real quick, so let's get this paused up. Let me get my alerts turned on here. Okay, now we're back to recording. Albie, thank you very much for the kind words. Every time I do, as I recall my training on a Rachel Rods, we're doing 300-yard targets. Breathe in, breathe out, then half out, squeeze the trigger. Yep. Hobby's dumb. Oh God, why can't I get people in the right spot? I hate myself. That is, I spend those money on nice brushes when I'm trash. The only way you get better eyes is get better. Um, Good silver airbrush paint. The Vallejo, I haven't used them, but I've heard nothing but endlessly good things about the Vallejo silver airbrush paints. People seem to rave about those. Like I said, I haven't used them myself, but I've heard nothing but good things about them. Other than that, I don't airbrush a lot of metallics myself. Let me see if I can get this to zoom in anymore. Ah, not that. I know you can focus on this. I know you can. There we go. I know we are like ultra zoomed in here. Yeah. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a little bit of black ink. Not enough to load the brush up, but just enough to try and touch the eye. And I'm gonna call that pretty much good enough on that one. I think that's good. Here's the thing, is even at this zoomed in, you can barely even see them. And that's the one thing too, is you do not have to paint the eyes on them. You can just kind of darken that area and just let that be good for the general idea of where the eyes are, because really you can't even really see the eyes for the most part at this scale. Feather Phoenix, yeah, you're welcome. Like I said, I've never used it myself. Now, if you're looking for something like, if you don't mind using something that's more solvent based, the Aclad silver airbrush paints are supposed to be absolutely phenomenal. But they are solvent based, so they're a little bit different to work with. Oh, he gets put in a corner in here a lot. I think we have corner as an A. I think we have corner as a command in here too, if I'm not mistaken. So I look at this thing and go, okay, I need to add some more color here to this. So I want to add, I'm going to take, obviously I didn't paint the boots yet, so I'm going to just start with this nice red mahogany, rich mahogany. So we're going to give this a little bit of a red leather here. If anyone has any questions, always feel free to ask. We're going to be wrapping up our paint along here in just a few minutes. I mean, I'm going to still be painting for the rest of the day. But he's just about done here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my light umber in this mahogany and just lighten it up a little bit. Because this being his feet, I don't need to have a whole lot of highlights or anything going on. Just enough just to, for the highlights to be there. do is I'm going to go back in with my World War II beige, whatever color this was. And I'm just going to pick out a few pieces of fur just to give some highlights too. Yay! Alright. Hi. Thank you everyone who stuck around. I don't know how many viewers I'm probably going to just lose here. I didn't even realize it like just died there. I guess Twitch is just being a bitch. But basically I just finished up his leather boots there. I'm not sure. Oh geez, if I've been gone that long, holy crap. Freaking Twitch. I was saying that I've never tried the Vallejo ones myself, but if you wanted to try the Aclad 2 paints, that's ACLAD paints, those are supposed to be like insanely awesome silver paints, but they are solvent based. They're not water based. They're supposed to be some of the best on the market. Turbo Dork does some really good ones too, but they don't really just do just like, I don't know if they have just silver though, and probably not what you're looking for, but their paints are really, really good. Freaking Twitch. Well, thank you for everyone who hung around while Twitch was doing whatever the hell Twitch was doing. Alright, well I'm pretty much done recording right now, so let's just pause this and see if maybe that helps.